What's up, everyone in the personal training business land? It's Anthony Bevilacqua alongside Jimmy McCurry, and today we're going to be discussing how to have crucial conversations in your fitness business. If you own a fitness business at some point in your career, whether it's early on, whether it's later, once you have a lot of employees, and probably even in your personal life, you're going to be having some crucial conversations that are very, very important for in a fitness business for moving the needle, making more profit, getting more out of an employee. So these crucial conversations and how you have them are going to be vital to your growth, to your profit, to your bottom line. And there's a strategic way to actually have those conversations that me and Jimmy are going to go over today. So Jimmy, I actually have to have a crucial conversation with you today. And the crucial conversation I need to go over with you is your hair, man. What are we doing with that hair?
Oh, is it off? Is it off today?
Yeah, you got to quaff it a little bit to the side, man. What are you doing? It's a little bit of a mess there.
Yeah, I know. It's
there you go. A little bit of gel goes a long way, my friend.
I don't know how many times Anthony and I make fun of each other over our hair, but it's always funny. I always make fun of. I made fun of your hair when we were on when I was taking the sales training the last week, because I was just like, and it's talking about his hair or whatever, and Laura like cracks up because it was just funny, So, anyway, neither here nor there, podcast people, but we give each other shit sometimes. It's fun, and that's who you meet in the fitness industry, right? So when we look at crucial conversations and we look at what it is and what that means, Anthony and I over the years have hired employees, fired employees, and a lot of this talks about hiring, firing employees, or talking to vendors that maybe you don't have the right structure with, or whatever it may be, right? So this works for every relationship in your fitness business, but also every relationship that you have in general, right? And one of the things that helped me the most with this is actually the book, Crucial Conversations, right? So go download the audio of that, guys, if you haven't already. Makes a huge difference. It's funny because I was actually talking to my girlfriend's mom when I was first dating her, talked to me about this issue she was having with her family and stuff, like this family dynamic. And we were out at dinner, and I don't know why she was asking me, because I had just started dating her. And she asked me all these questions about, like, she's asking me, like, I'm outside of the family, I don't know. She's having some issues with another family member. And she's like, what do you think I should do? And I launched into this whole thing about the book, and like, then I sent her the book, and I told her like how to lead and lead with love and all this stuff, and how to get there. So I want to go over the cliff notes of that book if you don't want to listen to it yourself in the podcast today. And Anthony and I will probably talk about a couple of examples as to how we've used it to help us, right? In some ways, convincing people to leave your facility. In some ways, getting people back on the path with your team. There's plenty of ways to use these crucial conversations in a constructive manner for whatever goal you have. So, Anthony, I don't know if you want me to just like kind of launch into the process, or if you have some input at this point.
I have some things that I want to say about the things that I guess you should kind of keep in mind when having a crucial conversation. I don't know, do you want to keep this with employees, or you want to just talk in general?
We can talk in general, and then we can give some examples of how it's going to help these guys that are listening,
Okay. All right, I got it. So if we're going to talk in general about all this, the key is, I think, with having a crucial conversation, whether it's your wife, it's your business partner, it's employees, it's two very, very important things. Is one, taking ownership over yourself and the role that you have. So if I get into an argument with my wife, remember, there's always three sides to every story, as the saying goes. So if I'm playing the victim card, I don't know, I got to think of a scenario quick, but like if I'm playing the victim card, right, in the relationship right now, in the scenario, I'm going to come at this with that victim card where, she's wrong because of this. But if you take ownership for some of the actions, maybe I got upset at something she did, right? And I have to take ownership in the fact that maybe I did something to spark that. Or like with an employee, if I have an issue with an employee, I have to take ownership in the fact that I set the expectations for them, Did I outline what they need to be doing? And also the second thing is setting KPIs and setting performance indicators and expectations that have to be met. So I used this example when I actually explained this topic to one of my trainers. I said, if I told you to make the bed and you made the bed, but you just kind of threw the covers over everything and you said you made the bed. And I looked at the bed and I said, oh my God, this thing is a disaster. But I never told you that I wanted the covers 6 inches away from the pillow and the pillows to be stacked perpendicular to each other or whatever. But by me telling you exactly how I made the bed, now when I say, okay, you go out and make the bed, you know exactly what I'm talking about when I say make the bed. So before you even have like a really crucial conversation, take ownership on your side of it. Do you have those precise things in line? So like, again, going back to the scenario with the household, right? My wife, my kids, what's the defined job that I have? So my role in my house, what are my defined jobs? My wife just can't assume that I'm going to throw the garbage out every Friday. That's what garbage comes for us. My wife can't just assume that unless that's my role. And I say, okay, I'm responsible for the garbage. So if I forget to take the garbage out, then it's on me. But that expectation was set. But if those expectations are not there, you're going to be screwed and you're just going to be arguing without setting any of those expectations. So I think, like I said, I think that that's probably the most important piece of this whole thing is just those two elements.
Taking ownership and setting expectations, right? Like we talked about this on another podcast where the most of the issues that you find in your business and your personal life and everything come down to not properly articulating the expectations or not holding somebody to them not understanding those things, you expecting something different than what is being performed, or them not knowing what to expect, like them not knowing what your expectations are, right? So this disconnect in communication between expectations is a huge part of why things break down. And it's every relationship. So you may think, oh, well, they should just know how to do it. They should just know how to clean the gym properly. Cleaning the toilet is not that big of a deal. Everybody knows how to clean a toilet, right? But somebody's standard for cleaning a toilet, the way they were raised, may be different than the standard that you have for your facility. So it comes down all the way to that, where it's like, when you have somebody come in and you have somebody do something, and your staff can also set expectations with other staff members, right? It doesn't just all have to be you. But when you look at it, you gotta walk them through, this is what I expect for the cleanliness of the gym, down to how clean the flooring is, down to dusting, down to every little aspect of that task. You have to lay it all out, just like the making the bed example. Because if you don't, and you get frustrated with your employee, and then you go off on them because the gym's not clean to your standard, and they didn't know what your standard was, that's your fault, not their fault, right? So these things have to be corrected over time. And when they have to be corrected over time, there is a structure to the way you want to have those conversations, right? That's what we want to go into. So Anthony started it off perfectly. The first step to having these conversations, and these conversations can also be conversations that you have with members that are about to cancel too, because that's another crucial conversation. So before we jump into all the structure of it, let's list out the crucial conversations that you're going to have in your business, right? It's hiring is a crucial conversation, but it's not as big of a deal. But hiring and negotiating pay for new people is a crucial conversation, right? Firing, or on the flip side, convincing somebody that maybe it's not the right fit for them, because you can dovetail that crucial conversation into something that's a result that you want. Okay. Expectations around how roles are executed in your facility, right? These are a lot of the crucial conversations you're gonna have, and you're gonna have crucial conversations with contractors, landlords, with vendors that you have. Maybe you get your supplements supplied by somebody. Sometimes these are crucial conversations when you have to negotiate, or you have to end a relationship, or begin a new one, right? So these are a lot of the situations that you see in the gym. I don't know if I missed any, Anthony. If you can come up with any other situations in your gym that you would have?
No, I think that what we should really cover with all this, I think we should cover two main ones. So I think the one that we should really cover is an issue with an employee, because I think that that's pretty common. And I think I'm actually writing this down so we could make some notes. Issue with employees, and I think that we should also talk about crucial conversations with losing members, because I think that those two things will generate the most profits, and those two levers, if we can pull them, will tweak somebody's businesses the most. So let's talk about those two issues with employees and saving a client from canceling. I think that that's a big one. So let's go into that one first, since I think that, we talked about attrition and retention in so many other episodes, but that is the key element. If you're loading the bucket, we did a whole podcast on loading the bucket, right? How to get 30 members in 30 days. So if you're loading people in, but you're losing as many people as you're gaining in, you're in big trouble. So I think that conversation, that crucial conversation will, if we pull that lever correctly and you guys implement what you hear today, will shift the profit in your favor. So let's talk about that one first, and then we'll talk about employees on the back end of that.
Cool. So that's perfect, because my manager and I were just talking about the crewing conversation, as we call it, right? So we'll go over crew and what that looks like. So crewing your cancellations is an important step, just like the step of practicing objection closes, right? Those two things are just as important as each other. And when we look at crewing conversations, and we'll talk about what crew means in a second, but that's the crucial conversation that you're having with members that request a cancellation when you get them on the phone and you start talking about their experience, right? And Anthony's totally right in taking ownership and working out the result, right? So every time you go into these conversations, just like when you go into a sales conversation, you win by being okay with whatever result happens, right? So when you have a sales conversation, of course you want to close everybody, but you go in with the mindset of, I want to give this person the best result possible. A lot of times the best result possible for somebody is working with you or continuing to work with you if they're canceling, right? But you have to be okay with the outcome being different, because you have to go in with that mindset, because that mindset takes the pressure off. So the first step is going in with the mindset of being okay with whatever result happens from that meeting, right? Now, when we talk about crucial conversations in terms of crewing, crew is an acronym that stands for care, resell, explain away, work out away, or explain and then work out away, right? So when we look at that structure, my staff we were just working on this scripting and how it's going to work and what questions to ask, right? So when you go into the care component, sometimes when people put in cancellations, they just want to be heard. They want to vent about something, right? And there's a couple of reasons why people cancel, and some things you can't control. Medical, financial woes, these kinds of things, you don't have a lot of control over. But what you do have control over is the expectation between the service they're receiving and the price that they're paying, right? And that's where you can win those conversations. So we start off with care, right? We want to talk to them about their experience. We want to ask them if they received everything that they expected, how things have been going for them, what their overall training was like, and if there was anything wrong with your service. Just like you ask them in the sales meeting, right? Well, why are you not going back to this other trainer? Why are you not doing this? Why are you not doing that? Now, it may be scary to ask those questions because you're like, well, doesn't that make them think that this is, come to mind all the issues with your business? Not necessarily. It allows you to make changes, and it allows you to identify what the cancellation is coming from and why they want to cancel. And if nothing else, if it doesn't save the member, which you should be saving about 25% of the crewing conversations that you have, if it doesn't sell the member back into your facility, it at least lets you know where to course correct and help with more retention in the future with other members, right? So these closing conversations, these cancellation conversations are very important, and not only in saving that member itself, but potentially saving your business in the future from issues that you didn't know about, right? So you need to show them that you care. So you ask them questions about how their experience was, let them vent, let them talk about whatever issue they had, if there is an issue. That's the first step. then the next step we want to talk about is reselling them into the program, asking them why they joined in the first place, asking them what they're going to do now that they're not in your facility, or if they decide not to keep with your facility, what they're going to do for their fitness. And then you pose the question, how did that work for you before you came in here? Right? Because then they start thinking about, well, it didn't, right? It didn't work before I was here. So do I really want to cancel? They may say they have a home gym that they built. They may say that they have, a membership at a big box gym or something else, right? Well, how did that work for you before? Well, it didn't. So you resell them. So you have to section these things out, resell them back in your program and the value that you have. After you resell them into the program, you explain, one, what the cancellation policy looks like, and two, you explain what you can do for them now. So if they had a specific issue with something in your business, right? They weren't losing enough fat. They were not being paid attention to enough. There's other things we can sell them in that conversation to give them a better result. And sometimes if the situation is bad enough, you can give a little, right? So sometimes we'll give a little where we say, okay, Mrs. Jones, I know that like your fat loss results haven't been where you want them to be. The things that would help you would be getting on a supplement stack, which you would sell them, and getting nutrition coaching, which you can add on for free for a predetermined period of time to keep that member in your facility. I wouldn't discount the membership at this point. I would apply more service or upsell them into other things so that they can actually see the results that they're looking for. Because sometimes they're not on the membership tier that's going to allow them to get those results. There's reasons why they didn't get results. So you have to get to the nitty gritty of why they're not getting the result that they want and tack on a little additional service that's not going to cost you very much to supply them with, like a custom program, some nutrition coaching, maybe a membership upgrade for a couple of months. And you have a predetermined time period as to which that's going to end to give them that additional level of service to help them stay in your facility. Because it's much more valuable to you to give them an additional $50 or $100 service amount for free than to lose the entire amount of money that they're going to be leaving your facility with, right? Because then you got to find a new client, all that kind of stuff. And the key important point at the end is to say, sound fair? That's the workout away component, right? You say, does that sound fair? Fair enough, right? And you say it in such a way that it's like, this is the agreement that we're coming to now, and we're going to move forward, right? There was a time, an example of this, when a client was disgruntled about the fact that she didn't see the value of a fat loss challenge that she did at our facility. So she was calling to cancel her membership. And I talked to her and I said, I'm so sorry that you didn't see that you received value from it, right? What we're going to do is we will extend your nutrition coaching component of our fat loss challenge for the next 3 months and make sure that you get the result that you're looking for free. She still paid her membership due to come in at the frequency she was coming in for, but she got additional nutrition coaching service, and she's been training with us for 4 years, right? So that conversation in and of itself allowed me to increase her lifetime value by a ton because we just had this conversation, gave her a little bit of free service for a predetermined period of time, worked it out, and she's still training with us today. So that's the power of some of these calls. Somebody may cancel or want to cancel. If you didn't have this conversation with them, they'd be gone, right?
But Jimmy, I want to kind of come back a little bit to what you said. So that's all great points, man. And it's really, smart that you have this all written out as a kind of like a script to follow. And again, we say script all the time, but it's mainly a framework that you should be following when it comes to having these crucial conversations for crewing, especially for keeping members. But what happens when the member just doesn't divulge in that information? And again, I guess this happens in any conversation that you're going to have, is that the person's not always going to be so upfront and honest. So that lady told you she wasn't getting the value from the nutrition coaching.
Mm-hmm.
What if she didn't tell you that information? What would you have done?
Sometimes.
Well, what if somebody just having a conversation just doesn't give you the truth that you need to hear to correct the problem?
Right. And that's a hard place to be because sometimes that happens, right? And that's why we expect 25% of these conversations to turn into members staying, right? Sometimes it just goes flat on you. But the key is just like in a sales conversation, right? You ask the question and then you shut the hell up, right? That's very powerful. If in your sales meetings, if you are, and this is similar, if you are asking them a question and then you're saying, after they get done saying something, you say, okay, all right, cool, great. And you cut the awkward silence with a statement, you get less out of them, right? So in the beginning, when you're showing them the care component, that's where the real work is. And then the selling them back in is easier. So you have to ask the questions and you have to be quiet and let them talk and let them hang on the awkwardness, right? Some people aren't going to divulge a lot of information, but if you can hang on the awkwardness and say less, you're going to have a better opportunity to get more ammo to actually talk to them about what's going on, right? So that's one of the crucial components of that crucial conversation. Ask the question, let them vent, and let them vent more than you think that they need to. Get them talking and let them just talk. Because once they vent it all out, they feel better. And then they're more receptive to a resale.
Right.
That makes sense.
Yeah, it does. But some people just don't take the bait. And I think you just gotta, not the bait, but some people, if we're using our fishing analogy, some people don't take that bait, right? But, it's just something that's going to happen. So, and that was great, Jimmy. That was excellent. So let's kind of move now to the crucial conversation of having with employees. So I would say, and again, I don't know if you have this kind of as a framework also, but the main thing with talking to employees is, again, it's the same kind of conversation, that same outline. You're using that crewing technique where you're showing them, care, what's going on. I guess you kind of bring the issue up to them if there is an issue, resell them on why they're working with you and the mission of the business, explain away what you have to explain away with. And one of the things that I like to do too, especially when talking to employees and trying to correct an issue, is I always kind of start out with, the whole compliment sandwich. And every time I think of the compliment sandwich, I think of Family Guy. You watch Family Guy?
I've watched it. I don't know that scene, but
I got to see if I can find it on YouTube and send it to you, but it's hilarious when they go through that. I'm going to see if I find it to you and send it to you. But, basically the compliment sandwich is you say something good, you give the negativity, and then you follow up with something good. So, whatever. Employee, you're doing great here. Every member loves you, blah, blah, blah. But, we're having this issue with this right now with tardiness, whatever it is. We're having this issue right now with tardiness. What's kind of going on? And then you let them explain, you come to an agreement, come to a solution. And then you, again, compliment them and say, you're really doing a really good job here. And I want to see you improve and have a longer time staying with us here, blah, 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 blah. And then that's it. And that's kind of how you would do that compliment sandwich. Good, negative, good. But it always kind of, whereas if you're just kind of saying all the bad stuff, you're really just going to be putting that person down and they're going to shut down and not hear from you. And I think that that's the key with any conversation that you have, is trying to frame the point that you're speaking from and coming to that common ground. Well, like, if it's a conversation that you're having in your relationship, well, honey, I really love you, but when this happens, I feel this way. And it just kind of frames it a little bit different. Whereas if I said, you got to stop doing that because that's not fair when you do that, the person's going to automatically get on the defensive and like, why are you attacking me? Same thing with an employee. If I'm having this conversation with an employee and the employee did something really wrong, if I come out, why are you doing that? You can't do that. What's wrong with you? Why would you do that? The person's going to instantly get defensive. And then you're almost like Hitler, right? You're the dictator in this thing. And yes, you're in charge of your business, but you don't want your employees to be afraid of you, because when they're afraid of you, they're going to be doing stuff behind your back, and that's not good. So, and again, if they're scared, that's going to make them unhappy. So you want to make people not so defensive when you're coming out. You want to come to all these conversations with a goal in mind. The goal is to solve this issue because this issue will better the business. So when you're having that conversation with your employee, it's okay. The goal of the business is this. This is the issue that's coming up. We need to fix this so we can improve on the goal of the business and X. But without having all that in your mind, you can't come at these conversations yelling. You have to be calm, and it's okay to take time away from whatever happened. So for example, if something happened in the gym and you want to scream and curse and whatever at this person right away, like they did something really, really bad, right? Maybe it's good to take a day to digest everything, breathe, center yourself down, calm yourself down, and then have that conversation. Because if you have that conversation in a heightened state, you're going to say things in an emotional state. You're going to say things, you're going to do things that you're probably going to regret later. And that might not even be true. Like, think about it in your relationship. And a relationship is a good one to do this with, because there's so much emotion there that you get mad at your spouse or girlfriend, whatever. And you are such in a state that you just start saying things that, I'll never forget. I've done, I've broken probably all of these rules at some point. And I've been married for a very, very long time. So me and my wife have gotten into arguments before, and I have just said things that I didn't mean. Like, one time she said something and it was just so aggravating. And I'm like, what are you doing now? You're so stupid. And I didn't even mean it, but it just kind of came out because it was like heat of the moment. And she got really upset at me for saying that. And I understood what I said wrong, because obviously I shouldn't call somebody stupid, but it was just in the height of the moment that it escalated, and it didn't solve the problem, right? It didn't solve the problem. And it was just in the heat of the moment. This is why it's so important to take a breath and breathe. If an employee steals from you, does something really wrong that violates, a core value and they need to be terminated immediately, that's a little different, and a little different of a conversation that you're going to have. But if your employee does something that's a small thing or something that needs to get improved, take your time, breathe, regroup yourself, write out points that you want to cover with them, and then sit down and have the conversation. Do not do it in the heat of the moment. Unless, like I said, they stole from you and you got to get rid of them right away. Then It's a very simple conversation to have. It's like, hey, you did this. This is the standard. See ya. But again, a little different.
Yeah.
But I think we beat up crucial conversations there, man. Those are tough.
Yeah. And there's only 3 points, quick points, that I would make in regards to setting this conversation up. I want to parrot the fact that you need to take time to digest and build your thought process. You have to come at it with a calm demeanor, right? Very important. And easy ways to make sure you come at it with a calm demeanor. If you are presented with this issue and you're not well fed, you're not well slept, and you have additional stress, that is not the time to have the conversation. So make sure you're well fed, you're well slept, and your stress levels are, you're doing your meditation, you're doing your breathing, so that you can come at it with a clear mind. Because like Anthony said, when you're in a heightened emotional state, you say things you don't mean. And saying things you don't mean to employees kind of breaks that relationship down, right? Because it's not a marriage, right? Yes, there's a contractual obligations in some way to continue to work for you, but they could leave whenever, right? It's not a marriage where you have committed to sticking together and you're going to work through it and all this stuff, and you can work past those things. Sometimes you say the wrong thing to an employee and they're feeling really uncomfortable at their job, and then they're gone, right? So your employees are really valuable. So you want to make sure that in correcting those behaviors, you're well fed, you're well slept, and you take ownership over your part in the miscommunication. You take that ownership, it blows all the steam off of the conversation that would be otherwise stressful for the employee, and allows you to get down to brass tacks. And when you say, hey, maybe I had an issue, I had a problem with this, and I need to be better at setting my expectations with you. They're like, oh, no, It kind of puts them on their back, puts them on their heels a little bit. And then they come to you with more no, I'll be better. No, I understand, Taking that ownership is super important for breaking down the pressure of the conversation and allowing a good result to come from it.
So if you guys are ready to have that crucial conversation about growing your business, scaling, and really putting more money in your pocket, just click that link below and you can book your discovery call with us, where we'll basically sit down and help you go through your business and figure out what we need to improve to make you more money. Anthony and Jimmy, Fitness Profit Multiplier, and we are out.